Actually, this is a great metaphor. This is a great metaphor because actually everything you see around me is physical, but it came from this internal place of my own kind of inspiration that flowed into me. Hi, I'm Misha, and welcome to Vibrant Classroom, where I share reflections and revelations on the journey to create, speak, and be vibrantly. So, whether you want to communicate with more charisma and clarity, whether you want to create from a place of more fun and flow, or whether you want to live your life more freely and fully, this is the place for you. So, today I wanted to talk about the idea of following the flow, which, as I just said, is a very important part of living, creating, and speaking, because really any conversation is really just a flow of energy. So this I'll have like a little bit of kind of more theoretical reflections and also some parts of my own experience this very past week, in fact, in creating this video. There's this phrase in American English, mind over matter. And a lot of people I don't think they get at the essence of what the phrase is. What I think they're actually saying is, if you set your mind to it, you can really do anything you want to do. And if they're really being honest, they would probably say kind of just try harder. But what really the essence of the phrase is, and why I think it gets to the idea of flow, is it's really saying that kind of matter, the external material world, is really secondary when it comes to the mind, the internal world. So really, we really do have the ability to kind of create the environment for ourselves we want, to kind of, by moving into this kind of magical macrocosm within, to create what our outward reality looks like. So I wanted to, though, dispel this idea of the mind, because the mind actually is in its own way kind of as external as kind of the physical things we see. This is a great example of this, because we have all these wonderful physical things, but they have a sense of flow about them. All these plants are kind of physical and fluid at the same time. And actually they came into this environment because I envisioned them. Actually, this is a great metaphor. This is a great metaphor because actually everything you see around me is physical, but it came from this internal place of my own kind of inspiration that flowed into me. So, but getting back to the limitations of the mind, really, when you think about it, kind of a lot of the notions that we have about what the world is and why it came to be are things that we inherited from society, from parents, from culture. They're really not things that we were born with and that come from within. So while the mind might not necessarily be as physical as the things we see around us, it's really every bit as concrete. And if we don't kind of allow these ideas that have been imposed upon us to kind of just naturally fade and erode away, they can really form these fairly fixed figments that then create these external realities. So let's let that go. It's not serving us. It's not for us. There are some examples of if my fabulous apartment is not example enough of how your inspiration can lead to kind of a physical reality. There are some examples from film and culture. So if you saw Star Wars or The Matrix, there's this idea of kind of the Jedi who are kind of essentially kind of this ninja monk group, and also in The Matrix, Neo the One, who have the ability to kind of harness this energy, this sense of flow, this sense of something invisible and internal, and to use that to kind of shift their external environment. And they do it in such an effortless way, and you really see how kind of the things all around them are so secondary, so inconsequential when it comes to the power within. In practice, our own ability to kind of manifest and move around our external environments is not so immediate, and it's not maybe so literal in terms of kind of moving something around with a telekinesis type of power. But I truly think, I personally love to be surprised. So, in my own experience, this kind of unforeseen way in which the essence of what I want somehow materialized at some unforeseen moment in the future is even more magical to me. So I have some moments from this past week that actually kind of are examples of flow. So as you become more and more in touch with this kind of intuition, with this internal world, the external world starts to become more and more secondary. And there might be a point when it becomes a little bit frustrating, kind of living. You feel like you're kind of caught in between these two poles, and you're pulled in these two very strong opposing directions, and it can be very uncomfortable. Um, and this, I think, really gets at kind of the essence of being, yeah, this feeling of being caught in between really gets at this idea of constriction. You feel like you have nowhere to go, and you're kind of forced into this uncomfortable area that you don't want to be. But then when you're in that place where you see the limits, you see the very physical confines of your environment, when you get to the point that that is just so unbearable, that's when you realize you're at the point where there's really no other option but to kind of transcend and dissolve those limits. You know, if you're kind of all these wonderful examples in the physical environment today. If you have a shoe and there's a really tight knot, and you're frustrated about that because you're unhappy with the situation, you just pull and you pull with even greater and greater hysteria, the knot is just going to get tighter and tighter. And the only way to loosen and undo the knot is by moving into a sense of peace, into a sense of acceptance, into a sense of moving slowly. And that way, in a sense of flow, and in that way, you'll be able to undo the knot. So when the discord between our internal world of flow and our external world of confinement becomes so evident, apparent, and unbearable, that's when you really realize there's no other alternative but to dissolve this world around that seems so physical and concrete. And actually, I think this is a wonderful culmination to kind of, in the past 4 videos, and this being the 5th, I talk about a similar theme of kind of these yin and yang, and how this feeling of kind of limitation in one area leads us to openness in another. So in the first one with metamorphosis, we talked about kind of how maybe limits in terms of movement, really metamorphosis gets at a lot of different ones, so I'll do that one later. But and we talk about the idea of a pregnant pause, so this idea of stillness and emptiness leads to kind of a flow of movement into something that leads to a sense of fullness. Kind of winter, this place of lots of darkness and absence, leads to kind of the light of clarity and the light of inspiration. Then what was the next one? Mountains. The idea of kind of something that has a strong backbone, that has a certain level of hardness, allows it to have a softness and an ability to nurture. And then metamorphosis, it's similar to this idea of constriction, but you're kind of confined to your form in a certain place. It's actually very similar. We've come full circle. Did you see that? Do you see that we came full circle? So in metamorphosis, you've come to kind of the limits of your physical constraint in one form, and you have no choice but to kind of transform and evolve in order to expand in a new way. And similarly, when you feel constricted by your physical environment, the difference I would say with metamorphosis, here we go. The difference with metamorphosis and then with this idea of flow in your external environment is, with the first one, you're kind of transforming yourself in your own form, and with the other one, you're transforming the world and the space around you. So there you go. Which seems like an even bigger thing to do, but they're both possible if you move into that space. So in the upcoming videos, I want to talk a little bit. So here in the past 5 videos, I talked about kind of these ideas of yin and yang, how kind of a sense of perhaps lack and constriction in one area actually leads to abundance, discovery, possibility. And then in kind of the next series, I want to talk more and more about kind of what the process of once you have a sense of clarity, once you know where you want to go, what that journey is like, how to navigate that journey, and how to do that from a sense of flow. So that's kind of where I'm headed. But I'll give you a little bit of a preview. Actually, in this week, in terms of kind of putting this video together, I wrote an accompanying blog post, and there I actually filmed this video earlier this week, a different version of this video. But throughout the course of the week, I actually wrote a little bit more for the blog post, and it went in a new direction. It took on kind of a new metaphor. It kind of came to a new place of clarity. And also kind of in life this past week, I kind of played around with moving with the sense of flow, both in terms of kind of work and in terms of kind of my own life. And wonderful things happen. For example, there was one day I kind of wanted kind of a low-key day at work and life, and all of a sudden my classes got canceled and the day moved in that direction. There was another time I thought, oh, maybe it'll be fun to meet friends, but deep down, I really just wanted to sit down and kind of write and kind of move in this creative direction. And then the plans with friends fell through as well, and I was able to focus on that. So it's kind of the deepest internal sense is kind of what I've been moving into more and more, and my external environment, as I've trusted that internal space, has kind of just been falling into alignment around that. So in the future videos, I'll talk a little bit more about how to move into that space, how to trust that more, and what it looks like in practice to move into more of a space of flow. So those are my reflections on kind of following the flow, and also kind of my reflections in general on this first kind of series on kind of finding presence and absence, finding lightness and dark, finding movement and stillness, fullness and emptiness. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you found it insightful. And if you have any topics that you'd like me to cover on the podcast, if there's anything you want to learn about, please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. And stay tuned for many more episodes of Vibrant Classroom. Well, thank you for watching, and take good care.